Hello, friends. It is Halloween, but perhaps more importantly, it is the final day of Socktober, and we're not going to try and build any suspense. Obviously, if you read the title, I finished my first ever pair of socks right here. I am so excited. I am so happy with how they turned out. They're cozy, they're warm, thoroughly enjoyed the experience. A little bit of backstory. I had pulled out the yarn for these and was determined to finally make my first pair of socks, having had this yarn for multiple years. And I didn't realize until about halfway through the month that it was Socktober because my life is a blur. And I saw Socktober. These had been sitting around. I hadn't cast them on yet until I'm sure I have notes somewhere, but I hadn't cast them on until at least the 14th. I took the yarn with me to California, did absolutely nothing with it, and then cast it on after I was back from my friend's wedding. And so in the last 15, 16 days, I knit my first pair of socks. I used the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern. I'll put the whole thing on here because I do not remember who it is by. It is a free pattern. Note from editing Jessica, this is not a pattern I would necessarily recommend for your first pair of socks. I did fine. However, there was a lot of it that was knit to your desired length and that sort of thing, which if it's your first pair of socks, it's really hard to guess. Fortunately, it is a very popular pattern, and so it has a lot of Ravelry project pages that have notes on them, which is how I figured out approximately how many repeats I wanted to do for the foot section. Okay, back to the point. And I used Patton's Croy sock. This is sidewalk chalk. I am sure they don't make it anymore. I got it for 97 cents a skein multiple years ago. I used 2 and a little bit skeins of it. I think it could easily be knocked down a little bit in height for the sock, and then you could do it out of 2 quite well without really sacrificing any of the looks. I only had to swap in a little bit of extra yarn right around here in the toe decrease. So the last less than 20 rows, I would guess. Anyway, socks are done. Would I do it again? Obviously, it took me a while since I had this yarn so long to get into sock knitting because it just seemed very fussy, fiddly, and I personally prefer wooden needles. Unfortunately, I also hold my needles really tightly. So wooden needles in the size needed for socks isn't the best, and I broke several. I did use metal DPNs for this, and it worked fine. I think if I were to knit socks again, when I knit socks again, because I'm absolutely going to knit more pairs, I don't think I'm going to do it between now and the end of the year because I have a lot more on my plate. But I think next time I would I'd try some shorties maybe. I like DPNs. I do not mind them at all. However, I find it a lot slower, not because of the DPNs necessarily, but because I get distracted in between needles. Like every time I have to swap needles, I pause and do something else, which is an entirely me problem. But it's a problem. So I think in the future, I may try shorties to see if that helps. These obviously have not been blocked. I finished them last night. My Kitchener stitch worked out well. So in the future, I will be knitting more pairs of socks, but I think that's going to be a next year project because it is time for Christmas knitting. Craftmas? Yeah, we're going to call it Craftmas. We're finishing up Socktober and we're into Craftmas. So stay tuned. Next video is going to be what I'm making for Christmas gifts. Yay. I can't believe we're already here. But yeah, happy end of Socktober. Happy first pair of socks to me. Hope you had a wonderful month, and I'll see you next time.